Songs have a way of tying themselves to memories. I swear I'll never hear Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress without thinking of that rocking chair. It was a Maloof, handcrafted by Sam Maloof before he passed away, and cost my father 20 grand over 20 years ago. It's not just any rocking chair, it's a stunning work of art in Claro walnut, expertly sculpted and incredibly comfortable. Despite my father's flaws, it was the only thing of value he left me, and I still appreciate it. So, I came home to my Brentwood mansion and heard music blasting. The song started with echoing guitar arpeggios leading into a powerful arrangement. It wasn't my usual taste, but it was impressive. I followed the music into the family room, tossing my jacket aside, eager to relax in my chair with a beer and maybe some time with Tara. She'd been cranky lately, and it had been nearly 2 weeks since we last had a moment together. I walked into the family room and stopped dead. Tara was in the Maloof rocking chair without clothes, and in the middle of the act with my bandmate Carl. Both were using my favorite chair and my ex-wife, and I wasn't sure which upset me more. My mind raced. Why is she with him? Holy cow, they're going at it to the beat of the song. Thank God it's not rap, or Carl might have hurt his back. Carl was using the chair's design to his advantage for leverage. Then I wondered if Sam Maloof ever imagined his chairs being used this way. If they broke that chair, I'd lose it. I stood there for about a minute and a half until Carl noticed me and tried to disentangle himself from Tara and the chair. I was frozen, unsure of what to do. Confronting them would just make things worse and draw unwanted media attention, not to mention risk my hands and the band's future. So I did nothing. I turned and walked away, heading toward the bedroom. As I buttoned a new shirt, I caught Tara's reflection in the mirror. "Where are you going?" Tara asked, avoiding eye contact. I tried to smile but failed, just staring at her. Tara, once a teen idol, now a glamorous star, was my wife, and now, apparently, neither. "We didn't mean for it to happen," she said, sitting on the bed while I packed a duffel bag with clothes. Once I had enough, I dragged the bag to my dresser and added underwear and socks. "That's it?" Tara asked. "You're not even going to say anything?" I ignored her. Despite expecting to be furious, I just felt exhausted and defeated. It was like the wind had been knocked out of me. "God damn it, Nick! Say something!" she yelled. "What do you want me to say?" I snapped, dropping the duffel bag. "Is there a guide for finding out that your wife and one of your oldest friends are having an affair? Huh? Should I have been prepared for this? Maybe you could have dropped some hints." I was drained and just wanted to get away. I dragged my duffel bag past Tara, grabbed some toiletries from the bathroom, and packed the bag into my Escalade. Back in the house, Carl was lacing his shoes in the rocking chair. "Look, Nick," Carl began, but I cut him off. "I just want my chair," I said, picking it up. I nodded toward my Grammy Awards and framed albums. "You and Tara can box up my stuff, okay?" "Where are you going?" Carl asked. "You're the point man for the negotiations. You're not leaving, are you?" "Ship everything to my mom's house," I said, ignoring him. "I'll handle things from there." I loaded the chair into the Escalade with some guitars and started to get in. "Nick," Carl pleaded, "please let me explain." I took a deep breath. "So what is it that you didn't mean to happen? You ducking her or me catching you?" I didn't wait for a response and drove off as quickly as I could. I was 3 hours and over 250 miles west of Los Angeles, wishing Brentwood would just sink into the ocean. The driver, whose voice was rough from smoking, asked where we were headed. I told him Grant City, even though I no longer lived there. He chuckled and questioned if I was just running away, which I didn't answer. Eventually, he said people like me always pick the wrong ones. I agreed, and he called me a shallow prick. I retorted with a jab about him being just as bad. The conversation was going nowhere, but oddly, I wanted his company a bit longer. We rode in silence for 10 miles. He looked the same as always, gray hair, thick beard, big chest, and arms straining his flannel shirt. I could almost reach out, but knew it wouldn't make a difference. I faintly smelled cigarette smoke mixed with Lagerfeld cologne. After a while, he suggested I should have confronted the guy. I questioned what that would have changed, since they both knew better but acted anyway. He shrugged, saying it might have made me feel better than running away. I pointed out that confronting him would only result in swollen hands, tabloid mess, and them still being together in my chair. He reminded me he bought the chair, but I said it was mine now since he was dead. He agreed, but still said he would have kicked him. As we merged from Interstate 15 to 70, my cell rang. It was almost 11, and after 8 hours on the road, I was tired. I answered to John, our lead guitarist, shouting over nightclub noise. He said I needed to return because we were close to a major deal, and Ethan couldn't handle it alone. I told John to let Ethan handle it and turned off my phone. Leadfoot, the band from high school, had me on rhythm guitar and lead vocals, with Teddy, Carl, and Vince. In junior year, Teddy got into alternative country rock. Hearing the Jayhawks in his room hooked me instantly. We spent hours with Hollywood Town Hall, and it still reminds me of that day whenever I hear Two Angels. Teddy and I began writing songs the next day. Music was easy, but lyrics were tougher. Teddy's love for poetry and classic literature inspired us, and soon we were churning out material. Teddy focused more on music, helping with lyrics occasionally. After high school, Leadfoot won a talent contest at the Lincoln County Fair, landing us a spot at the Illinois State Fair. Despite a strong performance, we only placed second behind a tap dancing act, leading to audience boos. Ethan Rose, a talent scout, approached us after the show and set up auditions in Nashville and Memphis. By college start, we had a record deal. Teddy left the band, concerned about selling out and losing his scholarship. Ethan then searched for a new lead guitarist. During Christmas break, Carl, Vince, and I auditioned in Memphis and found John Booma, a skilled studio musician. He wasn't great with lyrics, so I took over, while Carl and Vince played and sang. Our first album, Somewhere Down Highway 66, went multi-platinum, and Plain States hit diamond platinum with over 13 million copies sold. Since then, we've relied on those successes. We're currently negotiating a 5-album deal with Columbia, who are skeptical about our long-term viability. I'm responsible for showing we have strong material, but our song collection is weak. Despite this, the band and Ethan believe we can secure the deal, though Columbia is pressing hard due to our lackluster songs. On Wednesday afternoon, after a long drive through Nebraska, I checked into a Holiday Inn in Grand Island to rest. Exhausted, I fell asleep quickly but was disturbed by a troubling dream about Tara and the band. I woke up sweating and found a call from Ethan. I told him I wouldn't be back soon and to handle things without signing anything yet. He was worried I might bail on the band, but I insisted he wait for my approval. Realizing the situation could become public, I advised him to hold off on any deals. I showered, got back on the road, and by evening was in Iowa. I was still torn about whether to leave the band and everything behind. Walter suggested that if I was too scared to confront Carl, I should let the band deal with it and not run away, reminding me I'd still have everything: my band, fame, money, and a chance for revenge on Carl. I mentioned possibly quitting anyway, but Walter dismissed it, saying I'd remember what it was like being at the top and then losing it all. I filed away his words as potential lyrics. As we drove through Iowa, Walter revealed that his departure from writing wasn't because of Trudy, but because he'd lost focus due to the celebrity life. He eventually regained his touch with his last books, but admitted that abandoning his family was part of it. He suggested that dumping Tara might be a good move, not just for refocusing, but because she's self-centered, something he warned me about before we married. That was our last conversation before he died in a rock climbing accident, and he'd said the same about Tara. After that, I slammed down the phone and didn't speak to him again before he passed away a year later. Walter argued that dumping Tara would shed excess baggage and help refocus my energies. He claimed he was the real baggage and that getting rid of his distractions, like alcohol and women, except Trudy and Susan, had helped him regain his writing skills. I knew he was telling the truth. His books after the divorce, particularly the one about a disintegrated family, reflected his self-criticism and painted me and Mom in a sympathetic light. I questioned whether getting rid of Tara would help, especially since the band wasn't exactly supportive. Walter said I should enjoy my luck and quit if I wanted to. He warned me to stay busy with something meaningful, to avoid becoming a has-been recounting past glories. I was finally in Illinois, which wasn't much better than Iowa or Nebraska, when my cell phone rang. I hesitated before answering. Tara's voice came through, asking if I was there and begging me to talk. I cut straight to the point, asking how long the affair had been going on. She dodged the question, whining that she wanted to discuss it in person rather than over the phone. I told her I didn't want to meet right now. She asked where I was and said she could come to me. I don't want you coming over, I said. I need some time to sort things out. You can't take a break now, honey. You're right in the middle of your new record deal. Carl and the guys are really concerned, she insisted. Seriously? I shouted into the phone. I catch you and Carl together and all you care about is my duties to the band? What about your responsibilities to me? Can we discuss that for a moment, Tara? Screw you, she snapped. Grow the heck up, Nick. You sleep with groupies all the time, so what's the big deal if I have a little fun on the side? It's not like you're giving me what I need. That's a bullcrap, and you know it, I said. I haven't been with a groupie since our first tour. I didn't even know you then. And I haven't been with anyone else since we got together. How many times do I need to tell you this? What about Tracy? She shot back, mentioning her younger co-star. Remember those photos in the Inquirer last year? Are you going to deny that too? I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. We've gone over this a million times, I said. Nothing happened. We ran into each other at a club. She was drunk and some guys were bothering her. I just gave her a ride home. That's it. And I'll tell you again, she said. That's a damn lie, and you know it. She was all over you. She was falling down drunk, I said. You saw her legs giving out. Damn it, Nick, just come back here, she begged. Her tears sounded genuine, and crying on cue was her only real weakness as an actress. I'm sorry, I said. I can't handle this right now. We'll talk later, all right? Don't hang up on me, she pleaded. I ended the call anyway, turning off my cell phone after I hung up. Backstage at the We the People festival, we met up. Leadfoot was performing right before the Eagles' so-called final reunion tour, and Tara was the celebrity chosen to introduce us. That was 5 years ago, and both of us were at the peak of our careers. As a child star, Tara went from a small role in campus life to a leading part in a popular series. She evolved from a tomboy into a stunning young woman beloved by fans. Despite her wholesome on-screen image, her off-camera life was wild, often involving high-profile Hollywood figures and compromising photos. However, she stayed away from pills and rarely drank, which kept tabloids at bay. During a high-profile festival gig with Leadfoot, Tara approached me after our set. In tight jeans and a Western shirt, she flirted and invited me out. I agreed, and after a thrilling second set, we spent 3 days together in my hotel suite, then flew to Fiji for 10 more days. I fell for her when she taught me to drink beer through my nose, and we married a year later. Despite the pressures of filming, touring, and public attention, we managed better than most until recently. Returning to my mom's house after 7 years, I noticed it was just as I remembered. I called out to her, and she appeared, greeting me warmly despite her disheveled appearance. Noticing my rough state, she asked if I was interrupting anything, and I offered to stay at a motel for the night. Mom called her current partner, Dr. Bob, down from upstairs. To my surprise, he was significantly younger than her. Mom joked that his age helped him keep up with her. Dr. Bob greeted me warmly, and I apologized for the unexpected visit. He seemed genuinely pleased to see me. Mom reassured me that their relationship was over, which Dr. Bob's affectionate glance confirmed. Mom noticed I hadn't eaten properly in over 40 hours and made grilled cheese and tomato soup, my childhood favorite. While she cooked, Bob and I caught up on Grant City news. At the table, Bob asked about Tara, and I struggled to smile. Bob then suggested both Tara and I might be cheating. I admitted Tara's affair with Carl Simpson, which Mom responded to bluntly. Her straightforwardness, like Walter's, was refreshing. Bob was surprised by Mom's honesty and nearly choked on his soup. Mom criticized Carl Simpson's false charm and reckless behavior behind closed doors. Bob asked about my plans, and I said I needed to stay with Mom to relax and clear my head. Mom agreed, provided Bob was okay with it. I learned Bob had split from his previous partner, Elaine, and was now living with Mom. Mom hadn't mentioned this, and it made sense that Bob and Mom likely connected on New Year's Eve after a few drinks. Given Mom's charm and looks, it wasn't surprising Bob was into her. I laughed and asked Bob if I could stay with them. His serious look made me laugh harder, causing milk to spill through my nose. After a nap, I found a note from Mom saying she was out for the evening and Bob was at the office. Not wanting to be alone, I went to the hitching rail, where I used to work. The packed parking lot and busy dining room showed they were still serving great food. At the bar, Victoria, who was surprised to see me, gave me a big hug. She and her husband Ron owned the hitching rail for over 30 years and always treated their staff like family. Victoria mentioned it had been too long since we last met and led me to the kitchen to see Ron. Ron, busy and clean despite the kitchen mess, gave me a bear hug and commented on my appearance, laughing at my joke about California. He promised to fix me up with a proper meal. Victoria seated me at a small table and pointed out a redhead working at the waitress station. I recognized her as Amy Standish, who hadn't changed much in 10 years. The diner was filled with familiar faces, making it feel like home. "Hey, Amy," I said, surprised. Amy quickly took my drink order and then went off to attend to other tables. When she returned with a fresh beer, she swapped out the empty bottle and left again. Amy had been my high school crush, but despite my efforts, she never noticed me. She was focused and aloof, sticking to her group of brainy classmates. By the time she worked at the hitching rail, I was already a cook there. I admired her efficiency and reserved nature. though I once awkwardly tried to talk to her and got rejected. Ron later explained that Amy's shyness was due to her parents pushing her into the job to help her overcome it. Months later, a brief, "Hello, Nick," from Amy before college was a highlight for me. Now, sitting with Jimmy Schultz at the bar, I asked about Amy. Jimmy, now an insurance salesman, told me she had married a quiet engineer who left her for a male coworker. Amy is back in town, working as an English teacher and part-time at the bar. She's not seeing anyone and hasn't shown interest in dating. I went to get us another round and noticed the shortage of cocktail waitresses. I also asked Jimmy about Teddy. He still keeps in touch with Teddy, who lives on Foster Road, married to Jenny Layden with 2 daughters, and teaching English at the high school. Teddy occasionally plays in a bar band, which was ironic since he had left Leadfoot to avoid that scene. Jimmy's comment made me realize Teddy was happier living a simpler life, something he'd always preferred. Unlike me, Teddy had avoided the chaos of fame and built a fulfilling, normal life. He had it better than I did, and he also enjoyed Jenny Layden's company. As Walter and I walked home, he noticed my mood. I explained I had a lot on my mind, not just from Jimmy's comments, but also from realizing how out of touch I felt lately. I noted that my mom came from a small town, while Walter's family was from Chicago's elite. We were from different worlds, small town versus glamorous. Walter agreed, but I added that his behavior, like sleeping with starlets, only highlighted the contrast. Jimmy's comments made me see that Teddy's small-town life, which I had viewed through a Hollywood lens, actually made him happier. Despite my success and wealth, I felt empty, with a superstar wife and even my best friend feeling like a ghost. Walter had started appearing to me a year after he died, following a show in Dallas. At first, I thought it was a bad trip, but he seemed too real and our conversations too clear. After months of private conversations with him, which felt creepy, I saw Dr. Salomon. Initial doctors thought it might be pills residue, but tests showed nothing. Dr. Salomon ruled out schizophrenia and suggested I was seeing a manifestation of my past, a way my mind was dealing with stress and unresolved issues, particularly with my father. Walter then was a stand-in for that absent support. Dr. Salomon's explanation made sense. He believed seeing Walter was a healthy way to handle my pressures, and that over time I'd just have internal dialogues. I felt better until Walter reappeared, mocking Dr. Salomon's theory and revealing details about his long-lost manuscript, which was published to acclaim 8 months later. After a few beers, good conversation, and a huge bacon cheeseburger, I slept well. Friday morning, I felt refreshed and saw my old cheerful self in the mirror. Even the 23 unread voicemails didn't dampen my mood. I had yogurt and coffee, then spent almost 11 hours writing music, inspired by a story about Lennon and McCartney. Bob stopped by for lunch, but I was too focused to take a break. I filled half my notebook with new ideas. When Mom and Bob went out for fish fry, I continued working on a new melody. It wasn't perfect, but it was close. I got ready slowly and walked to the hitching rail, arriving late to a packed bar where the band was playing a catchy Ernest Tubb tune. Victoria led me to the kitchen, where Ron was preparing food and joking about California ruining me. Amy, blushing and avoiding eye contact, was asked to get me a beer. Her scent lingered as she left. Victoria and Ron watched me, and I stammered about how good Amy looked. Ron joked about me needing to grow a pair, which made me laugh. After my meal, I returned to the bar and saw Jimmy Schultz chatting with Jenny Cooper, formerly Layden, who looked much the same as at prom, but with a bit more weight and a few lines on her face. I offered to buy drinks as the song ended. Jenny hugged me tightly, excited to see me, and Jimmy nodded a greeting, saying he'd handle the drinks since I'd be busy. Jenny asked if I'd play a song with Teddy and his band, saying it would mean a lot to the college guys. With memories of prom and her pleading eyes, I couldn't refuse. I agreed, and Jenny quickly informed Teddy. All eyes were on me as Teddy announced I'd be joining them. The crowd, familiar with me, looked surprised and excited. Teddy humorously introduced me, doubting my guitar skills but suggesting I might sing. The crowd's excitement was palpable, and I felt a strong urge to reconnect with these familiar faces. Climbing onto the stage, I exchanged a friendly jab and hug with Teddy, feeling the warmth of our reunion. Teddy suggested we get started, and I picked up an acoustic guitar. After a quick setup, we decided on Two Angels, starting with a piano lead, followed by my guitar, drums, bass, and Teddy's slide guitar. The song featured a standout piano performance and an extended instrumental. By the end, it felt like we'd never been apart. Teddy's voice was better than I remembered. After the cheers, Teddy introduced me to the crowd, and I asked to stay on stage. We jumped into Bob Dylan's Lily, Rosemary, and the Jack of Hearts, improvising the arrangement with Teddy's guitar licks and the piano shining. The place was packed with people dancing and streaming in. I stayed on stage, joined the band during breaks, and signed autographs. We played country rock classics and a few Leadfoot songs. By the last hour, the crowd was overflowing, and we ended with a harmony-filled version of Poco's Keep On Tryin', which drove the crowd wild even though our voices were shot. After helping with the teardown, accepting free beers, and watching the bartenders clean up, we wrapped up with a final beer in the dim bar room with Ron, Victoria, Jenny, Teddy, and the band. Ron suggested we do this more often so he could retire eventually. Suddenly, I heard Amy's quiet voice behind me. We locked eyes and I was speechless. Jenny broke the moment with a tease, while Ron muttered about California ruining me, making Amy smile before she complimented the performance and left. Teddy and Victoria teased me about still having feelings for Amy, and Ron suggested I was too scared to act. Jenny warned me not to get too close, as Amy had been through enough. Victoria noticed my reaction when my marriage was mentioned and whispered to Ron, who nodded, understanding my issues. Teddy asked about my plans for the next day, and I mentioned writing. Jenny invited me to a cookout at their house, mentioning Amy and her son would be there. I agreed, excited about the idea. Teddy thought it would be good for me to hang out with normal folks. Little did we know, the next day would be anything but typical in Grant City. I slept in until nearly 11 on Saturday, only to be woken by Mom yelling about people on her lawn. It was press and fans. I quickly got ready, knowing I had to look perfect to avoid rumors of a pills binge or scandal. 15 minutes later, I joined Mom on the porch, smiling at her and facing the reporters and cameramen. I directed the reporters to the sidewalk and then onto the porch, setting the rule of ladies first and then left to right. The first question from Entertainment Tonight was about the viral videos of me and Teddy Cooper, and if I was leaving Leadfoot to form a new band. I clarified I had no plans to leave Leadfoot. I was just visiting family and supporting an old friend. Another reporter asked about leaving mid-record negotiations. I said Ethan Rose, our manager, was handling that, and I just needed a break. When asked about rumors involving Tara Boyd and Carl Simpson, I reassured them that Tara and I were fine, and I was simply taking a break. After half an hour of questioning, I stuck to my story. The reporters thanked me, apologized to Mom, and left to edit the footage. I told Mom I was heading to Teddy's cookout, and she and Bob might come by later. I packed my guitars into the Escalade and took a scenic route to avoid the press, arriving at Teddy's place around 12:30. Teddy greeted me and led me to the deck where he was grilling. Nearby, kids were playing in the pool. Teddy mentioned he had dealt with reporters that morning by threatening to call the cops. I laughed, wishing I could have done the same. I grabbed a Diet Pepsi and settled into a lawn chair. Teddy joined me after preparing the pork shoulders. We spent the next 20 minutes chatting, catching up on life, and keeping an eye on the kids in the pool. Teddy updated me on who was married, had kids, and where they worked, and we talked seriously about the past 6 years. Teddy asked why I was back, and I initially avoided the question, focusing on some oak trees. Eventually, I asked if he was happy. He said he was, and I admitted I wasn't sure if I was. It seemed like what I wanted, but it felt overwhelming now. Teddy advised me to just get out, but I explained it wasn't simple due to my band obligations and my wife's unwillingness to move here. When asked about the rumors of Tara and Carl, I confirmed them. Teddy shared that Carl had tried something similar with Jenny years ago, but she had shut him down. I told Teddy I was conflicted about Tara, loving her, but fearing change. He suggested I talk to Tara to understand why it happened, which would help me decide if it was a one-time mistake or something that might recur. He also joked about famous people's tolerance for such issues. Teddy's advice was clearer than Walter's. He shared a story about someone who found their partner with someone else and discovered she was just looking for someone new before ending things. He suggested that if there's genuine love, it might be worth trying to fix things instead of giving up immediately. Jenny's voice cut in as she overheard Teddy's metaphor about fixing a lawnmower. Teddy reassured me that only I could decide if my marriage was salvageable, noting that many couples work through rough patches and end up happy. Afterward, I went to get beers and saw Jenny and Amy preparing food. They froze when I entered. Jenny quickly hugged me, but Amy avoided eye contact and muttered a hello. It seemed like they had overheard my conversation with Teddy, which worried me. Back on the deck, I handed out drinks and joined a debate with Will about Warren Zevon versus Ray Charles. We agreed that while Zevon was versatile, Charles excelled in jazz. As more guests arrived, we moved to the pole barn to play some music. Teddy asked me to perform Time to Start Again, one of our old hits about mending a broken relationship. I sat up on a stool and played the song, noticing Amy swaying to the music and watching me closely. When the song ended, the room was silent. Amy, now bright red, was clearly moved. Will suggested a break and everyone went for drinks, leaving Amy and me alone. Amy apologized for overhearing my talk with Teddy and said she understood what I was going through. I tried to smile but felt awkward. She asked about the song, and I told her I hoped it would cheer her up. I then played If I Only Had a Brain from The Wizard of Oz. Amy laughed through her tears and even joined in at the end. I invited her to sit beside me, and she did after a bit of hesitation. I asked about her little boy in the pool, and her face lit up when she talked about Brighton. We chatted as I played, and I noticed she was more at ease. It was time to say what I've been avoiding for years. I stopped playing and folded my arms over the guitar, wanting to say something I'd been holding back for a long time. Amy's face grew serious, and she admitted she'd had similar feelings since I'd asked her to homecoming. She explained she was scared and wished she had said yes back then. She'd wondered how things might have been different, especially after her divorce. I was stunned, and Amy urged me to say something. I muttered my surprise, and we both laughed at the absurdity of it all. But then Amy became serious again, making it clear she wasn't interested in being the other woman. She insisted that if I decided to leave my wife, she wouldn't be part of that decision or relationship. I agreed, acknowledging that, after all this time, it was good just to talk openly. I wasn't looking to complicate things further, especially with someone I barely knew. Our conversation was cut short by the sound of a helicopter landing nearby, signaling that new complications were on the way. Amy and I stood outside watching the helicopter land a few hundred feet away. Teddy's little girls ran up, excitedly calling the newcomer Uncle Ethan. I was surprised they knew him so well and felt a pang of guilt for not staying closer with Teddy. Ethan emerged from the helicopter, helping out Monty Evans, the Columbia exec handling our contract. I cursed under my breath. I'd hoped to avoid him on this trip. Amy noticed my reaction and asked if I knew Monty. I confirmed with a nod and walked over, joined by Teddy, who looked happy to see Ethan, but puzzled by my irritation. Ethan greeted us cheerfully, asking if they could join the party. Teddy welcomed them and introduced Monty, but I ignored their handshakes and glared. Ethan tried to smooth things over, mentioning the viral video from last night. Monty apologized, explaining that the situation with the video and the rumors about Tara and Carl had become urgent. He asked if we could get the rest of the band out here for a quick meeting. Teddy said they were at the house, and I tried to brush it off, but Monty insisted, stressing the seriousness of the situation. Ethan turned to me, clearly frustrated. He explained that Monty's bosses and all of LA had caught wind of the situation, and the news was about to explode everywhere. They were hesitant to continue talks with Leadfoot because Carl's drama made the deal too risky. I realized my career might be in serious trouble if we didn't address this soon. Even though I was considering quitting anyway, I didn't want to narrow my options too drastically. Monty broke into my thoughts, mentioning that the situation had worsened overnight but had shifted when the videos started trending online. Teddy and I guided Ethan and Monty to the pole barn, where Teddy went to round up the rest of the band, Will, Rob, and Jimbo. I watched as they entered, each showing a mix of nerves and excitement. Will was tall and brooding, Rob was muscular with a crew cut, and Jimbo had a straightforward, down-to-earth demeanor. Teddy seemed oddly amused, and I had a sense of what was coming. Monty started talking about the attention from last night's performance, hinting at big news. Ethan nudged him to continue, and Monty revealed that Bob Dylan had called, praising our rendition of Lily, Rosemary, and the Jack of Hearts. Teddy seemed unfazed by the news, but I was clearly surprised, especially seeing Will and Jimbo so excited. Regardless of personal tastes, Bob Dylan's praise is a huge deal in the industry. When Dylan speaks, record executives pay attention, especially after his recent reinvention. Monty asked to see what we had, and Teddy agreed, though he was unsure. Monty wanted to see us perform without interruptions, so we played 4 more songs, a mix of upbeat tunes, a ballad, and a medium-tempo piece. Monty recorded everything on a camcorder, which, while not perfect, was better than a shaky YouTube upload. Afterward, Monty thanked us, skipped the food, and promised to call the next day before leaving in the helicopter. Ethan stuck around for the party, and I was surprised to see how well everyone knew him. My guilt for not staying in touch with Teddy grew when Mom revealed she had helped recruit Will, Rob, and Jimbo from Chadwick College. She just asked the music professors for recommendations and put them in touch with Teddy. An hour later, Teddy and I were in the kitchen shredding pork shoulders for sandwiches. He handed me some plastic bear claws and showed me how to use them. As we worked, Teddy mentioned he was seriously considering something but didn't go into details until Ethan came in. Ethan and Teddy exchanged glances, and Ethan joined us, ignoring my questions while grabbing another pair of bear claws. I realized Ethan knew his way around the kitchen, which was another surprise. As we shredded the pork in silence, I waited for Teddy to explain what was really going on. Ethan broke the silence, revealing that Leadfoot had been struggling since the second album. While our popularity had kept us selling millions and packing arenas, our songwriting had declined. He shared that he had flown in to see Teddy about a year after our Grammy win, noticing the drop in quality and hoping Teddy would still be writing. I was surprised to hear Teddy was still writing. Ethan admitted that Teddy's new stuff was only fit for album filler, not hits. Teddy had been trying to convince Ethan to get us back together, but it never happened. When I asked why they hadn't just reached out earlier, Ethan explained that they tried to approach me during a busy period for our last album, Cactus Rose. When I pressed further, Teddy admitted that he had received my latest batch of songs 5 months ago, after the American tour, and had reworked most of them. I was initially pleased, but my smile quickly faded as I waited for more details. Ethan revealed that the songs we'd been negotiating with were mine, and that Teddy hadn't been involved. He'd only seen my rewrites recently, and agreed they were better, but not quite right yet. The issue was that he learned about Carl and Tara shortly before getting the updated songs, which meant he knew about it for 2 months without telling me. I was furious and struggled to keep my hands from hitting the counter. I confronted Ethan and Teddy, demanding to know why they hadn't informed me sooner. Teddy retorted that I hadn't been in touch for 6 years and had ignored his wedding invitation, so he didn't see the point in updating me. Jenny's voice cut through our argument, reminding us we had guests outside who didn't need to hear our drama. We sheepishly returned to shredding the pork, while Jenny put on a cheerful front for the guests. I told Teddy I never saw the invitation, and felt awful about how I'd treated him. He said I needed to figure things out with Tara, and even if he wouldn't forgive her, he thought I should decide for myself. I then asked Ethan if it was just about the money. He assured me it wasn't, that he cared about me like a brother and didn't want to see me lose everything without a backup plan. Teddy pointed out that Ethan did tell me, but Ethan clarified that he'd ended the negotiations early because he had a tip about Carl and Tara meeting. He didn't think I'd believe him over Tara or Carl, so he didn't mention it. Ethan explained his plan was to help me stay in the band and keep my career on track, even offering to help find a new bass player. Teddy confirmed he was in on the plan. This was a lot to process, and I was pretty pissed. But honestly, I couldn't blame either of them. Ethan had been looking out for me and Leadfoot, even if it was partly for his own interests. I asked what the afternoon was about. Ethan explained that the YouTube videos were blowing up, way bigger than expected. They were getting tens of millions of hits, and even Bob Dylan had taken notice. Columbia was keen to cash in on this, and Monty saw the potential in reuniting us. If Ethan had shown him the rewrites earlier, we might already have the contract and be dealing with kicking Carl out. My anger faded, replaced by a grin. Carl was in serious trouble now. Ethan confirmed he was nearly broke, which surprised Teddy. Ethan mentioned that Carl was spending faster than he could earn and didn't have song royalties like us. Carl had lavish places everywhere: Aspen, New York, Malibu, and even London. I laughed at the thought of Carl chasing London women. We finished shredding the pork and started setting up the trays. I apologized to Teddy, who admitted he might have been too harsh. He'd intentionally sent the wedding invitation to my old address to keep it low-key, which I could only laugh at. We brought the trays outside, and I noticed Amy watching me. Teddy went over, kissed her forehead, and whispered something. She smiled at me, and I wished I'd been the one comforting her. With a beer in hand, I stood alone, thinking about how Tara's infidelity had likely been ongoing. I doubted I'd ever fully get over it, but I decided to hear her out. After 5 years together, I needed to understand the full extent of what happened. Amy's hand on my shoulder broke my thoughts. She asked about my mood, and I shared a saying from my father. Some days you're the pigeon, and some days you're the statue. Her laughter was bright and pure, and it made me feel good to see her so happy. But the next morning, Walter's grumbling woke me up. It was just after 9, and he told me Tara had been on morning shows bad-mouthing me. I thought I was dreaming until he literally threw the blankets off me. I scrambled to get ready as he warned that the press would be arriving soon. In the kitchen, Dr. Bob and Carol were already on edge. Carol asked if I'd heard the news, and when I confirmed it, she wanted to know if it was true. I assured her it wasn't. Bob patted my shoulder, confirming what he'd already told her. The phone rang, and Carol handed it to me. Ethan was on the line, sounding unusually upbeat. He informed me that Tara's team had gone public, portraying her as the wronged party. I was frustrated and confused. Why did she have to handle it this way? It only made a bad situation worse. I asked how he planned to handle things, but he said he'd fill me in once I got to Teddy's place. He advised me to wait until the media showed up and then drive out to Teddy's house so they'd follow me and avoid bothering my mom. Teddy assured me his family was fine with it. Half an hour later, I arrived at Teddy's, closely followed by a line of news vans that stayed off his property. Inside, Teddy showed me the talk show where Tara was being interviewed. The host, with a faux sincere tone, asked Tara about trouble in our marriage. When Tara's smile faltered, the host pushed further, questioning her about rumors of her seeing Carl Simpson from the band. Tara spoke softly as the camera zoomed in on her pained expression. "Carl and I are just friends," she said. "He's helping me through a tough time." The interviewer was eager. "What's going on in your life right now?" Tara's tone turned resolute. "Nick has been having affairs," she revealed. "Carl told me, and though I was skeptical, my agent, who's also a close friend, confirmed it. Nick's infidelities are true." The interviewer pressed, "How many women?" "I'd rather not say," Tara replied. "I confronted Nick last Wednesday and he left. I haven't seen him since." Teddy, who had been watching, turned off the TV, looking frustrated despite his attempt at a smile. Ethan, on the other hand, was smiling. "Looks like things have changed," he said. I realized that the talk with Tara was off. She'd forced my hand, and I decided to play the cards she'd dealt me and get her out of my life. Ethan laid out our choices. We can let her get away with this, or we can bury her. I raised an eyebrow, waiting for him to elaborate. "I've documented everything from the start," Ethan said. "We have photos, videos, and affidavits. After our talk yesterday, I had people digging deeper in LA. We might have more details soon." I was shocked. "There's more?" "Yep," Ethan confirmed. "She's been with several co-stars. Many in the cast and crew know and are willing to share." I felt a chill. This was typical Hollywood, but I never thought my wife was part of it. The facade of America's sweetheart was shattered. "So what now?" Ethan asked. I looked at Teddy, who was nervously clenching his jaw. "Bury the witch!" Jenny shouted from the kitchen. I chuckled. "You agree?" I asked Teddy. He nodded. "Talking won't help. You have all the answers about your marriage. So let's discuss our options," I said to Ethan. "If we do nothing?" "Your career takes a hit," Ethan replied. "New record negotiations for Mustang Ranch could be tough." "Come on," I said. "This happens all the time. It never hurt Mick Jagger, did it?" Ethan laughed. "True, Mick Jagger's image was always the bad boy, but you've been the quiet, thoughtful poet, the good guy. If you don't address this, you risk destroying that image. Columbia will see it as a threat to millions. Your crossover appeal is huge. Rock fans might not care, but the churchgoers in small towns will." I glanced out at the press vans and then back at Ethan. "Okay, how do we handle this?" Ethan grinned and opened his briefcase. 20 minutes later, Teddy had the press set up in the pole barn. I walked in, and the reporters immediately fired questions at me. When they quieted down, I said, "Same rules as yesterday. Ladies first, then the men from my left to right." I pointed to the young reporter who had gone first the day before. "Sorry, you went first yesterday," I said, then addressed the smartly dressed reporter who had gone second. "Mr. Harlan," she began, clearly angry, either about my previous evasions or my infidelities. Ethan had predicted she'd be a strong choice, and her tone suggested she was ready to pounce. "Miss Lockhart," I replied, maintaining a pained expression. "Mr. Harlan, your wife told Valerie Plymouth that you've ruined your marriage with multiple affairs. Is there any truth to these allegations?" I took a deep breath, made eye contact with the reporters, and prepared to respond. "I regret to say Tara was partially right," I began. Flashes from cameras blinded me momentarily, helping me keep a pained expression. "Our marriage is indeed over, but she was wrong about me being unfaithful." I pulled out documents from an envelope and addressed the reporter from Entertainment Tonight. "Your turn, Miss Miller." "So you're saying you've never cheated on your wife?" she asked. "Not once," I replied. "If Tara has any proof otherwise, I'd like to see it. Until Wednesday afternoon, when I found her with one of my oldest friends in our home, I thought my marriage was perfect. Clearly, I was wrong." "Are you saying she was the one cheating?" asked a male reporter with cameras closing in. "Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying," I confirmed. "Do you have proof?" demanded the initial reporter. I turned to the next man. "Do you have any proof to back up your claims?" he asked the reporter. I held up the documents. "This report from A&R Investigations of Malibu will show that Tara was not truthful this morning." In what ways was she untruthful? Asked another reporter. She's been having an intensely physical relationship with Carl Simpson for at least the past 2 months, I said, my voice trembling. I paused, savoring the moment as the scorned husband. This report has dates, times, photos, and more, I continued. And it appears this isn't the first time something like this happened in our marriage. Do you know of any others? Someone shouted. I don't want to go into further details, I said, putting the report back into the envelope. My manager will provide a redacted version soon. I love my wife deeply and thought she loved me. I've been faithful from the start. It's a dreadful shock to find out Tara didn't feel the same. As questions flew, I raised my hands for silence. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, I need to handle this privately with my family and friends. Please respect that. I left the pole barn, leaving Ethan to manage the press. How'd it go? Teddy asked. I felt exhausted. The fun had worn off, and reality set in. My marriage was over. My wife had repeatedly betrayed me, and the world would now be following this scandal. Jenny hugged me, tears streaming down her face. You really deserved better, Nick, she said. I hugged her back, struggling to hold back my own tears. By noon, the press had left and the band arrived at the driveway. Jimbo asked if there was any news, and Ethan mentioned that Monty would be arriving in about an hour. Teddy said nothing was decided yet and suggested we wait to hear what Monty had to say. When Monty arrived, he offered a recording contract from Columbia. The terms weren't great up front, but included incentives for high sales. It was almost as good as what Leadfoot had been offered, which was surprising given Leadfoot's track record. Monty emphasized that my involvement was crucial. I asked if Leadfoot was done, and Monty confirmed it was due to Tara's public statement. He said even if we dropped Carl, they wouldn't re-sign Leadfoot amidst the current turmoil. Monty also pointed out that adding a new band member and dealing with songwriting would be a risk. Monty told Teddy that Columbia wanted all 5 members of the band, not just Nick and Teddy. They believed in the chemistry among all of us and saw potential in our unique sound, though it was a risk. Monty thought the payoff would come from the combined efforts of the full band. Teddy agreed but said he had a condition. He wanted a 2-year commitment with 2 albums, and if things weren't working out or if it hurt his family, he wanted the option to opt out of the 3rd album. Will, Rob, and Jimbo were all in favor, and I agreed too. Teddy made it clear that his family came first, and Monty seemed concerned about how this might affect the terms. Teddy proposed that if we stayed together, Monty would get an automatic option for a 4th album on the same terms as the 3rd, with no right for Teddy to withdraw. Monty thought it over and agreed to come back after lunch for an answer. When Monty left, Jenny asked about the deal. Teddy said it was a good offer, and she turned to me, asking if I would take care of her. I looked at everyone, Teddy, Ethan, Rob, Will, and Jimbo, waiting to see if I was in or out. Amy stood in the kitchen doorway with her son, her expression unreadable. I needed air, so I stepped outside. 10 minutes later, Amy joined me, saying Teddy was eager to rejoin the band. He'd regretted leaving and had been pushing to get back in with the new songs. I told her it all felt overwhelming, and I needed time to process. She reassured me that Teddy and Jenny cared and would be there for me, and the band could offer a distraction. Then I asked Amy how she'd feel if I went back on the road. She didn't flinch and said it didn't matter. As she took my hand and led me toward the trees, she made it clear that right now there was no us, only me and her. I stayed silent, and Amy continued, explaining that while she liked me, we were different people now and barely knew each other back then. I was clinging to old memories and fantasies. She acknowledged my interest in getting to know her better, but she wasn't going to rush into anything with me while my marriage was falling apart. She also mentioned her son and how she didn't want to deal with more turmoil. I understood her point, but kissed her anyway. Her initial shock faded as she started kissing back, but she pulled away, upset. She scolded me, but I thanked her for giving me something hopeful to look forward to. She softened, hugged me tightly, and said this would be all she'd give me for a while. Back inside, everyone in the living room turned to watch as Amy and I walked in. She sat on the love seat and left space for me next to her. I sat down, glanced at her, and then at the others. I've made some decisions and have a few demands, I started. Rob and Jimbo exchanged high fives again, and Will pumped his fist, clearly excited. I hoped they were ready for what was coming. I told Teddy I wouldn't be running the band. Instead, they would make decisions and then run them by me for approval. I didn't want to be in charge or handle the decision-making anymore. Ethan and Teddy seemed puzzled. I explained that Leadfoot had been burdened with too much responsibility falling on me alone, and I needed to shift that weight. I wanted them to handle the decisions and keep me in the loop, without involving me in every detail. Teddy asked if I wanted the power to veto everything. I clarified that I just wanted to approve major decisions and be informed of the direction we were taking. I didn't care about minor details like dinner plans or hiring choices. I emphasized that we needed consensus on major decisions to avoid division. I wanted to be updated on decisions without being directly involved in the process. Teddy and the guys agreed to the terms. I made it clear I couldn't handle decisions right now, so they'd need to make them and just keep me informed. Songwriting would be separate, and everyone would have their shot. Will and Rob were on board, and Teddy gave a hesitant nod, looking at Jenny. Monty came back with basic agreements for our attorneys, and Columbia was fine with Teddy's terms. My conditions stayed between Ethan and the band. In just 5 days, I'd left a major rock band and a high-profile marriage, and was now diving into a new band with a fresh lineup. Meanwhile, I couldn't stop wondering why Tara had betrayed me, and if I'd ever be able to start fresh with someone like Amy. The next day around noon, Teddy and I were finalizing 2 songs we'd been working on late into Sunday night. By Monday at 11, Will, Rob, and Jimbo joined us in the pole barn to work on the first song, When I Get Back. Will surprised us with a fresh arrangement, turning a slow ballad into a rockabilly track with dual-lead vocals and a dynamic mix of instruments. It was a new direction, but it fit the new lineup perfectly. Teddy was the first to see her. I was focused on Jimbo and the rhythm guitar when Teddy's lead line ended in a screech. I turned to him only to see his eyes shift to the door. "Hey, Nick," Tara greeted me. She looked terrible. From what Ethan told me last night before he left and what Jenny said this morning, the media was having a heyday with her troubles. It looked like the private investigators' findings had been verified, and now new scandals were coming out almost every hour. "What do you need?" I asked, my tone sharp. "Guys," Teddy said, "how about we head up to the house for a bit?" Rob and Jimbo wasted no time leaving, checking Tara out as they walked by. I thought, if you play your cards right, you might get a chance with her. Once we were alone, I sat on a stool and waited her out. I didn't try to hide my anger or disdain, and she seemed unsure about moving from the entrance of the pole barn. She then whispered something, but I couldn't hear what it was. "What did you say?" I asked. "I was asking if you could call off the dogs now," she said, tears running down her face. This seemed genuine, given her usual lack of tears on command. "Just tell them to stop. You've made your point. I didn't start this fight," I said, my voice getting louder. "And now you, the one who spread the rumor that I was the unfaithful spouse, have the nerve to ask me to do something you didn't even do for me?" "It wasn't my idea. Janice made me do it," she said, confirming my suspicion that her manager was behind this. "She said you'd destroy me unless I took action." "That's nonsense," I roared. "She must have told you that you could turn a bad situation into something good, right?" Tara didn't try to deny it. "You were leaving me," she said. I replied, "You were cheating on me." Her anger cut through her tears. "Oh, get over yourself," she snapped. "You already knew." I was stunned. "How can you possibly think that?" "Didn't you read the tabloids?" she said. "They printed almost every rumor about who I was with." "But you denied all of them," I pointed out. I stopped asking after a while because I thought it was just typical nonsense. She remained silent, wiping her tears and avoiding eye contact. "Seriously, Tara, with Carl? You must have known I was completely unaware," I said. She nodded. "So why would you assume I knew about the others? You knew I'd be mad. That's why you kept it a secret. So you also knew I'd be angry about the other ones, right?" She nodded again, no longer trying to pretend I didn't care. "How many were there?" I asked. "Does it even matter?" she replied, clearly afraid to answer. "You know most of them now, or at least Ethan does." "So they're all true?" She nodded. "So that's not even all of them? That's just most of them?" I asked. Her expression showed she realized she had said too much. "Can't we move past this, Nick? If I stop now, can we get past this?" she pleaded. I laughed, and her hurt expression turned into anger at being dismissed. "Let me ask you something, Tara," I said. "Imagine you find out that every time someone comes to your house, they steal something. Not just once, but dozens of times. If you found out, would you invite them back?" "This isn't about house guests, Nick," she shouted. "This is our marriage." "Exactly. You took something far more valuable than silverware, Tara. You took my self-respect. You destroyed something I thought was perfect. Now I'm not sure if we ever had a real marriage. I question whether you ever truly loved me, or if I was just another way to boost your image." Her tears started flowing again. "You were never just a publicity stunt. she sobbed. I've loved you since we first met. More than anyone else, Nick. You have to believe that. That's not true, I retorted. You've always loved yourself more than you've loved me. Her reaction showed that I had hit a nerve. So, what you said on the phone earlier, she said. That's true, isn't it? Yeah, Tara, I confirmed, understanding what she meant. I've stayed faithful to you from the start, she nodded, wiping away more tears and sniffling. You're right, she admitted. I'm not good enough for you. She laughed. Honestly, I wouldn't stay married to me either. She came over and lightly touched my face. Please, Nick, for old time's sake, can you have Ethan call off the dogs? And the divorce will go through according to the prenups? I asked. No lengthy legal battles? No more attacks in the media? She smiled and nodded. I swear. And what about my things from the house? I asked. They're in my car, she answered, pointing towards the driveway. I thought it over, why not? I figured this would wrap things up quickly and with minimal fuss. No need to return to LA, and I could be done with her with just a few signatures. Most importantly, it seemed like her public image had already been sufficiently damaged, and Carl was now just a distant memory. So, yes, maybe I was being a bit lenient, but ending this quickly and moving on with my life seemed worth it. All right, I said. We file for divorce right away, citing irreconcilable differences. I want to see the proposed settlement papers by next Monday, and then it's all over. Can you manage that? She hugged me. I promise, she said. If you handle this, I'll call off the dogs, I told her. She pulled away from the hug. Do you think you can call them off now? The sooner I get the paperwork, the sooner Ethan will back off, I replied. She wasn't thrilled, but her expression suggested she was getting a better deal than she expected. Thanks, Nick, she said softly. She leaned in and kissed me on the cheek. And Nick? I looked at her one last time as my wife. Yes. Tara, I'm truly sorry, she said, her eyes filling with tears again. I didn't mean to hurt you, and I still love you. I'm sorry too, I replied, deciding to call off the dogs now and deal with any issues later if she didn't keep her promise. She kept her word, though. The next morning, a courier delivered the settlement documents, so that's the whirlwind of those 5 crazy days. Carl went bankrupt about 18 months ago, sold his fancy houses, and now lives in a smaller Malibu place. He's doing studio work and occasionally seen with a starlet. Vince, our drummer, left music behind after making some savvy investments. He's now living in Scotland, painting and golfing. He's shown interest in maybe joining us on an album for some dual percussion like the old Allman Brothers. John Booma, our former lead guitarist, is now our producer. He's doing well, working with Teddy and Will on great new tunes and producing other acts in Nashville and LA. He's glad to be off the road. Tara's career tanked after our divorce, and she was dropped from her show when ratings plummeted. Though her divorce was quick and the press was hushed, her reputation took a hit. She pops up in small roles now, but has lost her America's sweetheart status. Rob ended up with her, and he told me they spent the night talking about me, even during their more intimate moments. I just laughed when he shared that, despite his embarrassment. The Mustang Ranch in Nevada tried to sue us over their name, but we refused to back down. Meanwhile, Will kept bringing his basset hound, General Beauregard, to practice. We thought it'd make a great band name, though we weren't naming ourselves after the Confederate general. 5 months later, General Beauregard's debut album, Another Happy Face, was released to rave reviews. It sold 8 million copies, with 2 number-1 rock singles and 3 top 10 country hits. Our follow-up album, Saturday Night Drive-In, released with our first major tour, went diamond, selling 11 million copies in just over a year. The tour sold out before it even started, and the reviews were even better than for the album. Teddy's managing everything well, bringing Jenny and the girls on tour in their own bus. I sometimes join them to work on songs, but with all the noise from the kids, it's hard to get much done. So, the kids? Teddy's daughters, plus Brighton and Walter. Walter, as you saw in People, was said to be born 10 months ago to Nick and Amy Harlan, the local success story. But that was all a publicity stunt by Ethan and the team. The real story is a bit more complicated. It took almost 8 months after that weekend for Amy to agree to a date, and even longer for her to accept my proposal. Amy has since been keeping me on my toes, and I'm hoping she keeps surprising me with new ways to keep things exciting. We live close to Teddy, Jenny, and their kids, maintaining a normal life in Grant City, where people know us well and aren't swayed by our fame. As for Walter, I'll save his story for another time, but he's forgiven me and sends his best.